Hello everyone, RS Jafarzadeh here with a lesson on how you can create an RPG style game using Flash ActionScript 3.0. Now I'm going to be working with Flash CS5, but if you're using CS4, CS6, CC, it should work just fine, and there shouldn't be too much of a difference between what I'm doing on my screen and what you see on yours. To start out, we're going to need to have our files organized. Here I have my working folder and a folder called Sprites and Images. And here I have the picture of my background, enemies. I'm using sprites of Link from the Zelda game on the Nintendo system from back in the day. I'm just using these for fun, but you can use any images that you want. Just, you can create them on your own and use those in place of what I'm using here. You can take a quick look on the images that I am using. I have an animation of him walking backwards or with his back to me, one with him walking towards me, and one with him walking left. I don't need a right one because I'm just going to flip this in the game, and that will solve that problem. So you can put that together. If you're interested in using some of my source files, I'll have a link to that down below. So let's go ahead and get started. Once you've organized everything into these folders, open up Flash and create an ActionScript 3.0 document. From here, we're going to do a quick overview of what we see. Here is my stage. On the bottom, I have my layers, and this is set, as it says in the tab, it's a timeline, so these are all the individual frames. We're going to be working in frame 1. On the right side, I have my library, which is currently empty. I have my properties window, which shows me the properties of whatever is selected. In this case, I've selected the frame, so it's showing me the properties for the frame. On the right side, I have my toolbar. I can select any tool I want. I'm going to use the selection tool, and if I select the stage, it shows me the properties for the stage. If I select the frame, it shows me the properties for the frame. So that's everything in a nutshell. If your screen looks a lot different than mine, you can always reset the view by going to Window, Workspace, and I'm using Essentials when I'm programming with you today. So I have it set to Essentials, and you can always click Reset Essentials, and it'll put everything back to normal. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is import in all of the images we're going to be working with. Initially, I just want to make Link walk up, down, left, and right. So I'm going to go to File, Import to Library. From here, I'm going to go to the appropriate folder. So mine was on the desktop. There we are. And I'm going to just open up the Link walking sprites. I just want the images of him walking. So I'm going to select those, click Open, and now they are in my library. Now I want to keep things organized, so I'm actually going to create a folder really quick, and that's this little new folder icon down below, and I'm going to call it Link Sprites. And I'm just going to click on the first one, the first image, hold Shift, click on the last one, and click and drag them into the folder. They're all in there now. If I click the little arrow on the left side, it'll expand the folder and show me what's on the inside. If I click it again, it'll put everything back inside. Okay, so before we can begin, we're going to need to create something called a movie clip. And a movie clip is a type of symbol in Flash, and it's going to be an object that has an animation of Link when he's walking towards the back. We're also going to have a Link when he's walking towards the front, and another animation of Link walking to the left. And each one of these are going to be a separate movie clip. So here's what you need to do. Head over to Insert and click on New Symbol. Here, you're going to make a couple of changes. One, we're going to give it a name. So I'm just going to say Link walking front. The name here is not going to be too important in the case of this lesson. You can capitalize it or not capitalize it, one word or multiple words. In this case, it's not going to matter too much. But when it does matter, I'll let you know. Here, the type, you have 3 to choose from. Ours is going to be a movie clip. and we're going to click OK. Now you'll notice my screen changed. I'm currently inside of the symbol Link walking front. You'll also notice that I have a crosshair here. This is the registration point. And when I move things on my X and Y axis in the game, it's going to move it based on this point. It doesn't matter too much just yet because we're just creating the animation, but later on in the lesson it is going to matter and we're going to pay close attention to this. For now, we're just going to keep our symbol close to this. I'm going to start off with link back. I'll take link back 1, drop it on my stage here, well, I should say inside the movie clip, and I'm going to line it up. Let's just say I'm going to line it up with the back of his belt. That's fine right there. I'm also going to zoom in a little bit. I can zoom in here, or I can press Control+ on my keyboard to zoom in. I can hold spacebar on my keyboard, and it will become the hand tool temporarily, so I can move Link to where I want him to be. Now, we're going to go ahead and go forward to frame number 6, and right-click and insert a blank keyframe. What this is going to do is have Link with his right leg forward up until frame 5. And then at frame 6, it becomes a blank keyframe. And I'm going to drag over Link back 2. Now I can't quite line them up, and if I play it right now, he'll bounce around. That's not going to work out for me. So I'm going to turn on onion skinning. That's this button down below. And I can match it up so that Link stays in the right spot as he's animating. And if you want, you can zoom in further and really get a detailed view and make sure that everything's lined up correctly. You can also use the arrow keys to nudge him up, down, left, and right, as long as you're on the selection tool. So, I'm going to zoom back out, and it looks like things are lined up pretty good. Let's turn off onion skinning and go back and forth. Yep, looks really good. The only thing is that if I was to loop this animation over and over while he's walking in the game, it's going to look like he has an injured leg, because he'll play his right leg forward for 5 frames, and then he'll play his left leg forward 1 frame, and then go back to his right leg forward. So we need to have equal time for his other leg. So I'm going to go to frame 10 and insert a frame. A regular frame. So that means when I put a regular frame there, nothing is changing. He stays from frame 6 through frame 10 with no changes. Frame 1 through 5 will be the same with no changes. So there we have it. That's the first animation. I'm just sliding this back and forth. I can press enter to play it. Looks really good. Let's go back to scene 1. Now we're back in scene 1 on the stage. I'm going to go to insert new symbol again, and here I'm going to type in Link walking front, and I'm going to click OK. Oh, I misnamed it. Funny me. So I made a mistake earlier. This is supposed to be Link walking back. I'm sure you noticed it and you're yelling at me on the other side of this video. But I'm going to double click here. I guess it's a good lesson on renaming things. I can double click on the name and rename this. This was supposed to be Link walking back. There we go. Insert a new symbol again. Link walking front. Type is movie clip. Everything looks okay. Click OK there. And we're back in the symbol again. I'm going to drag over Link front 1. I'll just line it up with his belt buckle again. No problem. Zoom in a little bit. There's Mr. Link. We're going to go over to frame 6. Right click and insert a blank keyframe. Then go to frame 10 and insert a regular frame. You can do it out of order. It won't matter. So here I am on frame 6. It's blank, and the reason I can tell it's blank is because there's nothing in it. You can see it's white. This one here is gray colored and it has a little black dot. That means it's occupied. There's something in that frame. So on frame 6, I'm going to drag over Link front 2, turn on onion skinning to match them up. Make sure it's matched up correctly. Play it, make sure it looks good. Yeah, he's going left and right a little bit, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit closer. And the way I'm going back and forth with my keyboard right now is I'm pressing the angle brackets. That's where your period and comma are. So you can see when I go to the next frame, he moves slightly left. So I'm just going to click it and nudge him to the right. Almost got it. One more. That's pretty good. No one's going to notice. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'll turn off onion skinning. I think it looks great. I'm going to go back to scene 1. And we have one more animation left. I'm going to go to Insert, New Symbol, call it Link Walking Left. Click OK. And here I have Link walking left. I'm going to go ahead and drag over Link left 1. Drop him here. Zoom in a bit. F6 is the shortcut, or F7 I should say, is the shortcut for inserting a blank keyframe. So I'm going to click there or press F7 on your keyboard on frame 6. And I'm going to drag over Link left 2. Again, turn on onion skinning, make sure it matches up. Now on this one, the side view, because it's a walk cycle and we're looking at it from the side, his head actually bobs up and down. If you ever watch someone's walk cycle, you'll notice that they go up and down a little bit. So when his feet come together, he should be a little bit taller than when his feet are apart. So you can see that here in the video from the previous frame. Again, I'm going to insert a regular frame at frame 10, or you can press F5 on your keyboard to insert a regular frame. And you can memorize that. F5 is for a regular frame, a keyframe is F6, and a blank keyframe is F7 on your keyboard. But in this case, it would be F5. And let's take a look. I'm going to turn off onion skinning. Let's see how he looks when he walks. Yep, looks pretty good. So we have our 3 animations. Now, I want to take a moment to help you troubleshoot if you have any problems. Let's say by mistake you put a keyframe there and you're like, oh no, I didn't want a keyframe there, what do I do? Or I put a blank keyframe here and it's all ruined. Oh no. What you can do, well, first of all, if I just go on it and press the delete key on my keyboard, it's going to delete what's in the frame, but the frame still remains. So in a case like this, you want to highlight the frames that you want to remove. Now be careful when you do this, because if you click it first and it's highlighted and then you drag it, it's going to actually extend or move the frame itself. So I'm going to deselect it by clicking off of it somewhere else. Then, where the unselected frames are, I'm just going to click and drag in one move. From there, I right-click and go to Remove Frames. Now, I'm almost there, but frame 10 is missing a frame, and I did want frame 6 to last all the way until frame 10. So I can right-click on frame 10 and insert a frame, and now everything's back to normal. Worst case scenario, you can always just remove all of the frames and right-click them, but be careful. If you remove all of the frames like this, we have a problem, because now I can't drag anything over anymore. Why? Because there's no frame to drag it onto. I need a keyframe to be able to drag things into it. Now I'm going to undo that, so I'll press Ctrl Z on my keyboard and put it back to normal. Let's go back to scene 1. Now I need one other thing. When we want to play our game, what we're going to do is have one movie clip that has an animation for Link walking back, Link walking front, and Link walking left and right, which you don't see here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say play the frame that has Link walking left or right or front or back. The way we do that is we're going to insert one more symbol. I'm going to call it Link All Sprites. You can name it anything you want, but this is just what I'm choosing. Again, the type is MovieClip. Click OK. And from here, we're going to drag over Link Back. And I'm just going to drop it. And this time, the registration point is very important. We do need to pay attention to it, because when we move this movie clip around, it's going to move it based on what is at this registration point. So the one before wasn't too important, but this one is. So I'm going to line it up with the bottom of his feet and in the center of his body. And the reason is, when I move him around, I want it to be based on the center of his body and at the bottom of his feet. This will make more sense as we start coding. So I have this movie clip of Link walking back on frame 1. If I were, pay attention to what I'm about to do, if I was to double click on this right now, currently I'm in Link All Sprites, but if I double click on him, I go inside Link walking back. So we have Link All Sprites on frame 1 is a movie clip animation of Link walking back. So right now I'm back in Link All Sprites. I have one frame. On frame 2, I'm going to insert another blank keyframe. And here I'm going to drag an animation of Link walking front and drop it in the same spot. Center of his body. Again, I'm nudging with the arrow keys, and I'm on the selection tool. And I'm going to put him in the same spot. On the third frame, I'm going to insert another blank keyframe and drag over Link walking left. And on the last one, the fourth frame, I'm going to insert a keyframe. So before we were using blank keyframes. Up until this point, they've all been blank keyframes. But for this step, we're going to use a keyframe. And what that does is it takes the frame from before and duplicates it on the next frame. And now frame 3 and 4 are the exact same thing, except on frame 4, I'm going to select Link, go to Modify, Transform, and flip horizontal. The next thing we need to do is label each of these frames. Now currently, the way it would work is I'm going to take this entire Link All Sprites and put it on my stage. And then I'm going to say, when the person presses the up arrow key, show frame 1. If the person presses the down arrow key, show frame 2. If the person presses the left arrow key, show frame 3, and then frame 4 for right arrow key. But the thing is, as the game expands, it's going to be hard to tell which frame is what. Like, go to frame 1 or go to frame 2. It's better to label each of these frames, so that way we can just call the frame. Say, go to the frame where he's walking front or walking back or left or right. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to select the frame, and you might remember this from earlier. When I select the frame in Properties, it shows me the properties for that frame. And under the label, I'm going to label the frame. Let's type in walk back frame. Now you'll notice that I have spaces in between the words, and I've capitalized the first letter of each word. First thing is, you don't have to capitalize the first letters of each word. You can do it however you want. I'm just doing it this way. As long as when we refer to it, we are using the same cases with the letters and same spaces. Like a common mistake I've seen is people will put an extra space here, and then when they try to run their game, it doesn't work because in their code they didn't use the space. So it does matter. You have to pay attention to what you have in this box, and it has to be exactly the same for when we're coding. So memorize this. In the case of this video, I'll memorize it for you, but just make sure you pay attention to what you write here. Last thing about it is that it's a string. So the last thing about this is that it's a string, and so you can have spaces in it, but sometimes later on you're going to see some things can't have spaces, and I'll mention those when we get to them. So we have that. I'm going to press enter. Let's go to frame 2. I'm going to call this walk front frame. The next third frame will be walk left frame. And the last frame will be walk right frame. We also need another state for Link. And when he's walking, he also, when I'm not pressing the buttons, is standing. And we need those frames as well. So we're going to add 4 more frames to the tail of this that are just still images of Link standing there. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to frame number 5 and insert a blank keyframe. And these are going to be easy because I already have plenty of still images of Link right over here. These are all just individual images. So I can drag over Link back 1, and Link is just going to stand still on frame 5 with his right leg forward. So I drag Link back 1.gif. On frame 6, insert a blank keyframe, drag over Link front 1. Frame 7, insert a blank keyframe, drag over Link left 1. And frame 8 will be inserting a keyframe to duplicate the 7th frame on the 8th frame. So frames 7 and 8 are the same thing. If you mess up and put a blank keyframe, it's no big deal. Just drag over Link left again. But in any case, once you have that, go to Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And he's flipped over. Now, we're going to label these once again. I'm going to click on the 5th frame, go to Properties, type in Stand Front Frame. So the same format, capitalizing the first letters, spaces in between. The next frame, Stand Front Frame. Double checking this. Oops, I don't know why I keep doing that today. I'm used to putting front first, so I think it's just habit for me. But on the 5th frame, I wrote stand front frame. It should be stand back frame. So just to reiterate, 5th frame, the label is stand back frame. The 6th frame is stand front frame. The next frame is going to be stand left. And the last frame is going to be stand right frame. Okay, we're just about ready to go. One thing I'm going to mention, if you want to pay close attention to the positions here, you'll notice I didn't really use onion skinning, but you can if I turn on onion skinning. It'll show me where everything is, and you just kind of want to keep everything in this area here, because when he turns, you're not going to really notice it too much if it's off just by a little. But a couple of things that I would recommend, and I didn't really explain this earlier. The way onion skinning works is the red bar shows me where I currently am. The grays on the side are showing me the frames from before. So if I only want to see, let's say, one frame behind Link, I can drag the bar in, and it will only show me one frame from behind. This is showing me the frames coming up as well, and I can drag that in, and let's say I don't want to see any of those frames. I can drag it all the way in. So now it only shows me the frame from before. So you can play around with that, but as long as it's in this area, it should be okay, and when you're playing the game, you'll notice any problems there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off onion skinning so that everything looks back to normal, and I'm going to go through one more time with each of these frames here and make sure that they're labeled correctly. Walk back, walk front, looks good, walk left, walk right, and then front again, or excuse me, back again. See, I'm telling you. Stand back, stand front, stand left, stand right. Okay, everything looks good. If you ever have problems, come back and double check this stuff, but hopefully you got it down. We're going to go back to scene 1. And inside scene 1, I'm going to do a few things. First of all, I'm going to drag over Link all sprites, which is right here, and just drop them anywhere on the stage. So there we have Link. Looks good. One thing I noticed is that my stage is a little bit small, so this would be a good time to go set up our stage. Usually I do that at the beginning of the lesson, but I guess I held off on it this time. What we want to do is go ahead and select just anywhere on the stage with the selection tool. So you don't want to select Link, just the stage. And in here, we're going to make 2 changes. One, the frames per second, we're going to change that. Let's set our game to be 30 frames per second. That means every second, our game will play 30 frames. 2, the size of our stage. I'm going to click on Edit. Now, if you have a newer version of Flash, you can just make the change right in this box, but I'm going to have to click Edit on my version. And I'm just going to make it 1024 by 768, old web size. And I can change the background color here or here. I'm just going to choose kind of a gray, creamy color, kind of like sand, I guess, and click OK. So the stage is bigger, and I've changed the background color. I can zoom out, see the whole thing, and I can just put Link in the middle. Now, at this point, if I run my game, that's pressing Control-Enter, Link is going to spin around himself just like that. It's like some kind of tornado attack. That's normal if you have that. And we're going to talk to the program. We're going to tell the program to have him stand still in just a minute. But before we go any further, it would be smart of us to save our progress. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, choose the folder. I'm going to use the same folder from before, and I'll just call this my game, my RPG game. There we go. And click Save. All right, so let's continue with our code. The next thing we need to do is have a way to refer to Link when we're programming. I need to be able to tell the computer to talk to this guy, and to do that, I have to give him an instance name. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, I have an object in my library called LinkAllSprites, and an instance, or a child of LinkAllSprites, is right here on my stage. And under Properties, I can refer to that instance by typing in an instance name under Properties. So I selected Link with my selection tool, and under the Properties tab, I can go inside the instance name box and type in LinkMC. Now, I typed in Link with all lowercase letters, and I capitalized the M and the C, which stands for MovieClip. I've done it different ways in past videos. Sometimes I'll keep the C lowercase, sometimes I keep it uppercase. It's kind of up to you. In fact, for this video, I'll just do lowercase as well, since that's what I've been doing with my students. So Link, capital M, lowercase c, and you're going to want to remember this. The typical format in object-oriented programming is to humpback things, and what that means is that the first word is lowercase letters. The next word, you capitalize the first letter of that, so you think of it like a camel's humps. And if I was typing in, for example, programming is cool, I would type programming and then capital I for is, cool with a capital C. So it looks like it's a couple little humps there. And you'll also notice that it's all one word, so you can't have spaces in instance names. So let's put it back to where it was, Link MC, press enter, and we're good to go there. I'm going to go ahead and go down here to my layer 1 in my timeline, double click it to give it a name. I'll just call it Link. And I'm going to lock that layer so I don't accidentally put anything else on it. I want to just have Link on there. I'm going to create a new layer, call this new layer Actions, or you can call it Script or whatever, but this layer is going to be designed for us to be able to type in our code. And we don't have to. I could have written my code on the Link layer, but it's more organized this way. So keep things as organized as possible, because as your game gets bigger and bigger, you want to keep things nice and neat so you can solve problems easier and add things with ease. So stay organized. Okay, so we have our Actions layer. I'm going to go to Window and click Actions to pull up my actions. Now in ActionScript 2, I used to be able to actually click on Link and write code on that instance, but you can't do that in AS3. Another way you can get to your actions is to right click on the frame and click Actions. And a third way you can do it is by pressing F9 on your keyboard. Now I'm not going to use that in this case because that'll actually stop this recording. I learned that the hard way. So I'm going to be doing it the long way. But feel free, press F9 to pull up your actions. But just make sure that you're in the right place. Right here I can see I'm in the actions layer on frame 1. Everything looks good to go. So the very first thing we need to do is import in some classes. Now, in a nutshell, we just want to take some extra information that Flash needs to know to run our program. And classes basically help Flash know how to do specific things. So for example, one of the first classes we're going to import, so I'll type in import, is the keyboard event class. And the way I get to it is I type in Flash, and you can see that Flash is helping me figure out what I need to do. I can either double click it once it highlights it or press enter on it as I'm typing it. Dot events with a lowercase e, press enter on that. Dot keyboard event. Now this has a capital K, and you can see it's highlighting keyboard event. And then I'm going to put a semicolon. What this is basically doing is we're importing in this keyboard event class. And I want you to visualize it like this. Visualize it like Flash is the name of the library, just like you'd go to your local library and there's different libraries in each city. Well, this is the name of the library. Inside that library, there's a section called events, just like you might go to the fiction section or nonfiction section. And inside the events section, there is a class, think of that like a book, called keyboard event. And Flash takes all this information and loads it in so that it knows how to, or actually we can use Flash to communicate with the keyboard and do various keyboard events. Another one that we need is called the keyboard class. That's very similar, and I'll explain that in just a second. So I'm going to type in import Flash dot UI this time, which stands for user interface, dot keyboard, semicolon. And this will allow us to be able to refer to keys on the keyboard with ease. Normally, keys on the keyboard have codes, and if I want to press the right arrow key, it would have a special code. I don't have it memorized, but let's say it's like 36 or something. I'd say, if the user presses the key 36, do blah, blah, blah. But rather than looking up the codes each time, this class will allow me just to refer to the key. I can just say when the user presses the right key, So that's what that's for, and it'll make it easier for us. So the other classes that we'll need, import flash.display.MovieClip and import flash.events.event. And I think I'm missing one more. Import flash.display.stage. And normally when you're coding with Flash, once you're using some of these things, it'll import it on its own too. But because I already know what we need, I kind of did it ahead of time. And it's good practice for you too. So import all these classes in. This deals with things on the stage. We're going to be using this for when we're doing our game loop. This deals with our movie clips, things like that. But like I said, I already kind of knew what we're going to use. But if you forget any of these, usually Flash will import these automatically since they're part of Flash's library. Okay, so let's continue on. The first bit of directions that I want to give Flash is to stop Link from spinning around himself. So I'm going to give it a command to go to Link and make him stop on the frame where he's just standing still. So I'm going to type in linkmc dot go to and stop. Now go to and stop tells Flash to go to the frame, go inside of Link, that instance of Link, look on the timeline, and go to and stop on a specific frame. So I'm going to put a open close parentheses and a semicolon. And within these parentheses here, I'm going to type in the frame I want it to go to. Now I could put 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, but remember, we labeled the frames to make it easy for us. So I can put a quotation mark and type in the name of that frame. So we had called it stand, and we'll just say front frame. And I'm going to close the quotation mark or end the quotations there. So I have a quotation mark at the beginning and end, and I'm going to say stand front frame in it. So it's going to go to and stop on stand front frame. And if I run my code, let's see what we get. Control Enter, and you can see that Link is no longer spinning around himself. If I was to go back and comment this out, I'll put a double slash there, That's going to tell Flash to ignore this line. It's normally for comments. Press Control Enter, he'll just spin around himself. But as soon as I reactivate that line, Link is just standing still. And each time I run it, I'm pressing Control Enter on my keyboard. Okay, so there we have it. And it looks like we're off to a good start. The next thing we need to do is figure out how we're going to make Link walk around on the stage. Now we're going to divide this up into 3 functions. And a function is basically, I create a function, I name it something, and every time I use the name of that function, it performs what the directions were in that function. Now I'm just explaining with my words, but I can demonstrate it better on the screen. For example, let's say, this is just an example, and you can just watch this section. You don't actually have to do it, but you can try it if you like. Let's say I create a function, and the name of my function is going to be Link stand still. Okay, that's the name of my function. I'm going to put an open close parentheses, and then open curly bracket, and then I'm going to indent this and put a close curly bracket here. So I have a function called Link stand still, and what Link stand still does is it's going to make Link go to and stop on the stand front frame. So if I run it right now, it's going to spin around himself. It's not going to work. If I call on that function, if I type in that function and say perform the Link stand still function, and I can do that like this, open close parenthesis semicolon, that's going to actually run the function. So let's see, if I run it, he stands still. And you can assign this function, let's say, to a button. Maybe Link stands still when I press a button or something occurs. But that's the basics of a function. So we have that down. Let's put it back to normal. Erase all that extra stuff. The other thing we need to make this work is something called an event listener. And an event listener just listens for an event to occur. It's just waiting around for some event that you specify to occur. And the way an event listener works is this. It listens for an event, and when that event occurs, it performs a function. So for the first example, we need Flash to detect when keys are pressed on the keyboard. So the first thing I need to do is create an event listener. I type in stage.add event, and you can see it's already highlighting it for me. Press enter there. Add event listener, and there's all of these various events from the event class from earlier. You can see I all have capital E's, and generally things that start with a capital letter are classes. So here are all the different events: mouse events, touch events, blah blah blah. Well, the event that we are looking for is a keyboard event. So I'm going to type in keyboard event, and there are 2 I can choose from. There's keyboard event key down and keyboard event key up. This is not talking about the up and down arrow keys. What it's talking about is if the key has been pressed, if it's pressed down on your keyboard, any key, doesn't matter which. So I want to create an event listener for when a key is pressed down, so I want keyboard event dot key down, and keyboard event is this class right here. So I press enter on that, and the next thing I need to do is tell it what function I want it to run when it detects a key hit. So I'm going to put a comma and add the name of the function. So the name of the function I'm choosing is the key down handler. And the reason I name it that is because that function is going to handle all of the key presses on my keyboard. I'm going to put a closed parentheses and a semicolon. So all this line does is it creates an event listener that detects key presses on your keyboard, and if it does detect any key press on the keyboard, it's going to run the key down handler function. So let's create the key down handler function. I'm going to type in function key down handler, so it has to have the same name and same spelling. Notice that I capitalized the D and the H. If these 2 don't match, you're going to get an error. Function key down handler, open close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, and Flash automatically closes the curly bracket for me. Now, this by itself creates the function called key down handler, but there's a bit more legwork we need to do. This is the basic structure of a function. But inside the key down handler, you'll notice that we have these open close parentheses. And in here, we can pass extra information that the function needs. So the extra information that the function needs is our keyboard event class. And basically, what I want to do is tell Flash that every time I want to refer to the keyboard event class, I'm going to use the word, let's say, key event. You can type anything really, but I'm just going to use key event. So over here, I'm going to say key event. That's my made-up name. You can put anything you want there, as long as it's not a reserved word or a keyword by Flash. Dot keyboard event. And anytime I refer to key event, it's going to look up the keyboard. It's going to work with the keyboard event class. The other thing I'm going to do is at the end of the parentheses, I'm going to put a colon and type in void. Now, this is not necessary at all. You don't have to put this in, and it would work fine without it. But it does serve a purpose. Oftentimes, functions can return values. It could be any value. It could be an integer, a string, or whatever it wants to be. By typing in void, I'm telling Flash that this function is not going to return any values. If I don't put this in, Flash is going to go through each of the possible values. I guess you can word it that way. It's going to go through all that to see if you're returning anything, and it says, oh, okay, you didn't return anything. But while it's doing that, it's using up resources. So this way, I'm just telling Flash, don't bother looking. I'm not returning any values to you, so don't even check. Okay, so inside the function, I can type in the directions I want it to do. So one of the directions I want it to do is detect if the person presses, let's say, the right arrow key. So I'm going to create a conditional. A condition detects if some condition is being met. So if open parentheses, close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket is the general structure of an if statement. Inside the parentheses, you have your condition that needs to be met. And within the curly brackets, you have what you want it to do if this condition is met. So the condition that I want to be met is if the person presses the right arrow key. So I'm going to type in if key event, and that's this key event we talked about, if the event is the key event dot key code equal equal, and equal equal is an operator that checks to see if the key event is equal to whatever I say here. If I put a single equal sign, it's not going to work. Double equal checks to see if these two things match. So if the key event is keyboard dot right, we'll start with right, all capital letters, and you can see it's giving me a hint right there. Do this, whatever I write here. Keyboard should look familiar. That's this class we imported earlier, and it allows us, instead of writing the code, to type in right. And what I wanted to do is just to pass back a message to me in the output window saying, hey, I heard you. So I'm just going to type in trace, you pressed right. Close parentheses, semicolon. So trace, and in the parentheses I write what I want it to trace back to me. And what I want it to trace back to me is a string, you pressed right. Put a semicolon at the end of that line, and let's run our code and see if it works. Press Control Enter. Oh, I have a syntax error. Let's see what my error is. So I need a right parentheses before the dot. Aha, there's my error. I needed to put a colon there, not a dot. So function key down handler colon key event colon keyboard event. Sorry about that. So that way these two are connected to each other. I didn't mean to put a dot there. So okay, let's continue. Let's try that again. No errors. Okay, great. So right now, hopefully, if I press the right arrow key, it says you pressed right. If I press it again, you pressed right. Yay, it works. So we have that. We also need a function that detects when I let go of a key. That means when I release the key, it detects it. It's like, oh, you let go of the whatever key. So we're going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to keep things organized and type that code right over here. At the end of line 9, where I created my first event listener. I'll press enter, and we're going to create the exact same thing, except instead of key down, it's going to say key up, and we're going to do another function called key up handler. So here's how we do it. Stage.add event listener, keyboard event, and instead of keyboard event down, we're going to choose key up, comma, and we're going to name this function key up handler. And I'm capitalizing the up, the U, and the H. Next, we'll go down below our last function, press enter a few times, type in function, key up handler, open parentheses. We can use the same name here. I'm just going to use the same name. It doesn't really matter. Key event, colon, keyboard event, close parentheses, and put a colon void again. Open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket. And the directions I want to give it is if the person releases the right arrow key, say you let go of right. So the easiest way, I'm just going to copy and paste this code right here because it's the exact same thing. There's no change except for the message it passes back to me. So I'm going to highlight the if, the open curly bracket, the trace, and the close curly bracket. That's all we need. I'm going to press Control C on my keyboard or right click and go to copy. Go over here, Control V on your keyboard or right click and go to paste. And I'm just going to change the message here from from pressed to you released right. Notice that I have an open curly bracket and a closed curly bracket for my function, and within these brackets I have my if statement. Let's run it. No errors, looks good. And by the way, I can always click this little check mark to see if I have errors as well. This little formatting option allows the computer or Flash to format it so it looks nice and neat, but we've been keeping it neat already. Anyways, over here if I press right, you can see it says press right. I'm holding it. If I let go, it says you released right. Press right, release right. So it seems like it's working great. So far, so good. But there's a third function we need. And the third function we need is the game loop function. And that's the main function for my game, really. That's where a lot of the actions occur, where my enemies are, the code for my enemies walking around, or the characters that I interact with walking around, or even for our main character, our hero. So we need a game loop function. And that function is just going to loop over and over and over every time it enters the frame. That's what it's going to do. So to create that function, we're going to type in stage.add event listener again. And this time, we're going to type in event, not keyboard event, but event dot. And the event that we want to look up is enter frame. So I'm going to type in enter underscore frame. And from here, we're going to put a comma and type in the name of the function we want it to run when that occurs. So I type in game loop as the name of my function, close parentheses, semicolon. Now we have to create the game loop function. Let's go down below. At the end of everything, I'm going to press enter a few times, type in function, game loop, open parentheses, and the information that I need to pass into our game loop function is event. And I can just call it, let's see, what we can call it loop event, or loop event sounds good. Loop event, colon, event, close parentheses, colon void, open curly bracket, close curly bracket. And this is going to be the main loop for my event. It'll just do it over and over and over. So that's what we have so far. So the way we're going to structure this is I'm going to have it so that when I press the right arrow key, I'm going to have a Boolean, that's a true or false variable, become true. And when I let go, it becomes false. And whenever it's true, it's going to move link right. And when it's false, it's going to become false, so it won't move link right anymore. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and go up here and make some changes. First of all, on line 7 where we said link mc.goTo and stop, right after that I want to create some variables. And soon we're not going to even need this anymore, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to create a variable. To do that, I type in var and the name of the variable. So I'm going to call my Boolean variable write pressed. And it's going to be the type of Boolean. So write pressed colon Boolean equals, and I can just say true here, but I'm just going to kind of do it the longer way. New Boolean, open parentheses, and at the beginning of the game, it's going to be false, because I don't want this to be true at the beginning of the game. It's not pressed. Next, after I've created that Boolean, I'm going to go over here to the function I created for the key down handler. And instead of trace uPressedWrite, I'm going to say write pressed equals true. For the up handler, I'm going to go in and replace it with write pressed equals false. And lastly, in the game loop function, I'm going to type in if write pressed close parentheses, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket. I want it to make link walk to the right. Now before I do that, let me explain this. I wrote write pressed. You could also write if write pressed equal true. If I write if write pressed equal true, I'm saying check write pressed and see if it's the value of true. And if it is, do whatever I write here. If I just write if write pressed, because this is a Boolean, that means the same thing. If write pressed means if write pressed is true. So you don't have to write equal true if you don't want to, but you can if you would like to. Okay, so the directions I want to give the computer, one is to make link walk to the right. Now, the stage is a big X and Y axis. And what I want to do is have link move to the right on the X axis. That means if this is 0, and this is 1024, and I want it to move right, I want to add to his current location. So whatever his current location is, I want the computer to add, a certain amount to it. So to do that, I'm just going to say linkmc dot x plus equals, that means add to linkmc dot x, and I can write the value I want, like 10. And I'll put a semicolon. So if I run it now, link is there. He's standing still. If I press the right arrow key, he'll start sliding right. If I let go, he stops. Something kind of cool, if I didn't have this line, watch what happens. I'm going to comment this out. This is the false statement. So if when I let go, right press becomes false. If I don't have that, and I press right and I let go, he'll just keep going. He won't stop because he never becomes false. It'll just keep doing this. So the right press becomes false is very important. The other thing is, rather than having it so that it is 10 here, eventually I want to be able to maybe change the speed of my character. Maybe he gets a power up. And it would be better, rather than writing 10 here, to create a variable and have the variable equal to 10. And later on I can change the variable and it'll update automatically here. So let's go back up to the top and create another variable. I'm going to type in var link speed colon number, because it's an integer this time, equals, and I'll give it the value of 10, semicolon. So down below, now I have a variable. I created a variable called link speed. It's a number, and its value is 10. Now here, link mc.x plus equals, and instead of 10, I can write link speed, and it will have the exact same result. And I can always go back and change it later, and it will update it for all the other directions once we type them. The other thing is it looks like he's sliding. Well, I want to make it look like he's walking to the right. So I'm going to add a second line within that if statement, within that condition, that says link mc dot go to and stop, open parentheses, quotation mark, walk right frame, quotation mark, close parentheses, semicolon. And if I run it now, there's link. He's facing front. I press the right arrow key, and he's going to walk with his bottom towards me because of course, it looks like I misspelled here. You can see that I put walk right frame, and I didn't put a space there. So I'll try that again. There he goes. He's walking right. Now it continues to show the animation for link walking right. I want it to stop when I let go of the key, and you may have already guessed where that's going to go. Over here where I said if the right arrow key is released, make right pressed false. But I also want it to go to and stop link stand right. So I can go ahead and type in link mc dot go to and stop, open parentheses, quotation mark, stand right frame, quotation mark closes, close parentheses, semicolon. So now whenever the key is pressed, right press is true, and it does this, and it shows walk right frame. And when I let go of the key, it performs this function, and it detects that I let go of the right key, so right press becomes false, and you should show link stand right frame, or stand right frame. So let's take a look. I walk him right, and I let go. Walk right, and let go, and he stops. Now we just have to rinse and repeat for the other directions. So I'm going to go ahead and head up here to my earlier function, and we're going to go right after, under key down handler function, we're going to go to the if statement here, and I'm going to go right after the close curly bracket for my if statement. Be careful not to go too far down. This curly bracket closes the function, but this one is the end of my condition, and that's where I want to be right now. I press enter right after that, and I type in else if key event dot key code equal keyboard dot left, close parentheses, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket, right pressed equals false. True. Skipping ahead. So right press becomes, or left press, I'm making lots of mistakes with you guys today. So left press becomes true. I think it's too early in the morning. Perhaps, I don't know. Left press becomes true when you press the left arrow key. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and here I have my key event keyboard right, and here it is running the code when I let go of the right arrow key. Well, I want to make another condition when I let go of the left arrow key. So I'm going to press enter, type in else if key event. It's the exact same thing, and you can copy paste if you want, but I'm going to type it up. Key event dot key code equal keyboard dot left, close parentheses, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket, left pressed equals false, semicolon, link mc dot go to and stop, stand left frame. And it's going to do the exact same thing we did above, except it's going to do it for the left side. So it's going to make left press false, and link MC is going to go to and stop left frame, because I'm releasing the left arrow key. So when I release the left arrow key, he should be facing the left. And last but not least, we're going to go down to our game loop function. And in here, I'm going to press enter right after the condition again. If open parentheses, left pressed, close parentheses, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket. I'm going to say link MC dot x minus equals, because he's going towards 0 this time, minus equals link speed, and link MC dot go to and stop, open parentheses, quotation mark, walk left frame. Now, you'll notice that we have one more thing we need to do that I haven't done yet. I referred to left pressed here, here, and in our down handler here, but I never initialized it. I never made a left pressed. So we have to do that up over here where I'm creating my variables. And I'm going to try to keep all of the booleans together just so it looks nice and organized. So I'm going to go right after my new boolean from before for right pressed and create the same thing except for left pressed. So var left pressed colon boolean equals new boolean false. And at the beginning of the game, left press is indeed false. So let's try it. I can click the little check mark actually here. I got a little ping, that means no errors. Everything looks good. Press Control Enter. I press right. He walks and he stops when I let go. I press left. He walks left, and he stops when I let go there. Okay, for the last section, the last thing we need to do is perform the same steps for up and down. So when I press up arrow, the up arrow key or the down arrow key, so you can walk towards the top of the screen and towards the bottom. So I'm going to head over here to my key. Well, let's actually, while we're up here, let's go ahead and create our variables first. So right on line 10, I'm going to go ahead and press enter right after that. Var up pressed colon boolean equals new boolean false, and var down pressed colon boolean equals new boolean false as well. Pay attention to how what I've capitalized and what I haven't. All the first letters are lowercase and the P is all capitalized for each of them. I'm going to scroll down a little bit to my down handler, my key down handler function, and right after the else if, there's a closed curly bracket, and just before the last closed curly bracket, right over here, I'm going to press enter. So there's a closed curly bracket above and below me right now. The bottom one's for the function. This top one here is for the else if. I'm going to create a new one. Else if key event dot key code is equal to keyboard dot, and we'll do down, close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, down pressed equals true. And I'm going to press the down arrow key here. Press enter right after the else if right here. See where my mouse is. This is where you want to be. I press enter after the closed curly bracket for my else if. Else if one more time. Key event dot key code equal keyboard dot up. Keyboard dot up. Close parentheses. Open curly bracket. Skip a line. Close curly bracket. Up pressed is equal to true. So I went ahead and did it for up and down. Now we have to go to the up handler, and in here, right after the else if, I'm going to press enter. Else if key event dot key code is equal to keyboard dot down. Keyboard dot down, close parentheses, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket, down pressed is equal to false, and link MC dot go to and stop, and we're going to tell it to stand on the he's going down, so he's facing the front, stand front frame, close parentheses, semicolon. I'm going to do it one more time. Else if key event dot key code equal keyboard dot up, and pretty much the same. Oops, scrolled too far. Same information there. Up pressed equals false. Link MC dot go to and stop. Stand back frame. All right, and last but not least, we have to go to the game loop section here, and we're going to type in, now over here, by the way, I didn't mention this, so I typed in if right press, do this, if left press, do this. Because of the way we're formatting it, I'm keeping everything as else ifs. So if I was to write it like this, Link can move on, for example, diagonal lines. Like I can have right pressed and left pressed, or right pressed and up pressed, and he'll move, on a diagonal line up to the right. But in the case of this game, I want him to only move in one direction at a time. It wouldn't have worked anyways because these are all else ifs above. But just to stay consistent, I'm going to make this an else if here. Else if left pressed. After that, I'm going to press enter, do another else if. Else if we did down pressed, link MC dot Y, because he's on the Y axis. And now let me explain this before I go any further. When he's on the stage, we said that this is 0 on the X axis and 1024 on the X axis on the right side. And up here is up and down is the Y axis. Normally you would have negative numbers, right, as you go down, but in Flash, 0 starts up at the top of the Y axis, and in our case 768 would be at the bottom. So actually when you go down, the numbers are increasing. So when I want them to move down, I'm adding. So plus equals, and we'll say link speed. We'll use the same variable. And link MC dot go to and stop. And we want it to play the walking front animation. So walk front frame. And last but not least, else if up pressed, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket, link MC dot Y minus equals link speed, and link MC dot go to and stop, walk back frame. Okay, I think we're ready to try it out. Let's run it and see what we got. No errors, that's good. Up, down, left, right. Okay, we're in good shape. We have the basic movement controls for Link working, and in the next video we're going to start looking at having another character, perhaps a non-playable character, that can walk around and have a chat with Mr. Link. So stay tuned for our next lesson. Until then, we'll see you next time.